Welcome to Even Just a Little, where we explore the beautiful gift of choice, tiny trusts toward big freedom, those moment to moment decisions we make that build life. Welcome to this episode of Even Just a Little, where we dive into the gift of choice, the tiny little decisions that we make throughout our day, moment to moment, day to day, month to month, and before you know it, you've built a life. And today I'm really eager to visit with a fella, David Lawrence, who's a fellow artist. He has been involved in art that I know very little about. So I'm eager to learn about his journey. He's a studio production artist. He's actually worked on some of the largest murals in the country, which is fascinating to me. I love big, but that's a whole nother level. He's also been part of a production team that has received Academy Award nominations, worked with Netflix, Google, and Hinge. He's an author, multi-talented fellow of his novel is called Primitive Anarchy. And really what I'm hoping to get to today is what he's doing currently called Craft Ad. And he is bringing back the hand painted billboard, and which to me is so beautiful in so many ways, giving artists the opportunity to share what they do and just getting it out there for people to see. So thank you so much for joining me today, David. I'm so eager to hear your story. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to be here.
So tell us a little bit, what does it mean to be a studio production artist? What did your days look like when you were involved with that?
So the studio production artists, when it comes to like large format muraling and mostly for corporate clients, those really large, murals you see downtown places, especially in, top 10 markets, that's everything in pre-production. So I would take the design, I would create all of the pounce materials, so everything that goes up on the wall for the artist to be able to draw out and size the illustration. I would get all of their pre-production formatted documents ready to go so they could orient themselves on the wall. And then I did all of the color mix. So most of the studios have kind of a custom way that they pull colors and mix because everybody does it a little bit different. And
Mm,
one of the studios I worked for was in acrylic and one that was in oil, which was really nice because I got to familiarize myself with both.
yeah.
Um, and so it was everything that the wall artists needed so that they could get on site and get the image up.
Wow. What a helpful fellow you were then. That's a
Yeah, a little too helpful because one of the reasons I started craft ads was they weren't putting me up on the wall.
yeah.
And I bounced around from a couple of different studios because I wanted to head onto the wall. I wanted to be painting, and it was rare that I got to. And the reason they kept citing was, "You're too valuable in the studio. We need you in the studio." And I
Ah,
said, okay, then pay me what the wall artists are getting paid because they were making double what I was making. And they said, no, we don't pay the studio artists as much. And so that's when I started to try and figure out my own lane,
mhm.
my own way, because there was a hard cap, on the possibilities and potentials for growth.
Well, yeah, it sounds like you were doing a tremendous piece of the work. My goodness. Yeah. Yeah. And in the heart of an artist, if you're not sharing what you're put here to share, then that's can't do that. So, yay for you. Well, what about, so tell us about the novel then. How did the novel figure into this?
So the novel started, my background was in film production. I have a master's of fine arts in production design from AFI. And the novel is really kind of a separate track, but in a totally other life, almost 20 years ago, I was a story editor for Disney.
Okay.
Um, I started writing seriously in high school, um, and continued through college. When I got to Los Angeles, I got a manager who represented me, and the concept for the novel was originally much simpler. It was just I was driving home from I was working for a development house on Sunset, and I was driving home back to Orange County at like 2 a.m. and there was a detour off of the 5, and it went way into this office park, in the middle of the night. And I thought, I hope this is a real detour. I hope I'm not getting, I hope this isn't a trap that I'm getting like sent into. And that was kind of the impetus for the novel. Oh, how interesting if there was a detour that headed in. And then as the world changed and as I got older and matured and my interests matured, um, it started to grow and it became this sort of epic techno thriller, this sort of opera. And it kept getting larger and the characters, grew. And now it's actually a series. So I'm working on finishing books 2 and 3.
Great.
It spans 30 years. It starts in Caltech in the 1990s, and this group of scientists creates a new technology that they decide is too powerful for the world, and so they take it underground. And it's
Mm.
about the Department of Defense trying to find where these people have gone and what is it exactly that they've created.
Wow, how interesting. You're such a creator. Oh my goodness. It's
You
in your,
know, it's
it seeps out of you, it sounds like. Yeah.
That's right. It was compulsive. It took me 17 years
Mm,
to actually finish the whole thing. I have an amazing development editor, Julie Tibbett. She was on the team that edited the Harry Potter series for Scholastic. And she really got into the weeds with me and helped me break that whole story. We spent 2 years
mm,
just ironing the whole thing out, making sure that the logic of it worked, that the circuitry of
mm.
it worked, before I took the next 18 months to go ahead and actually write the prose of the first book.
Wow.
So it's a very long journey, but I honestly couldn't stop. There were years where I put the book in a drawer and would do something else, or my life would take me a different way. And it was like making wine. Sometimes it just has to mellow, sometimes it has to mature, sometimes you have to change the barrel,
Yeah.
and you just
Oh,
you just keep going. But
mm.
I honestly couldn't stop. If I had, it would still be driving me crazy. And I I don't have to think about it anymore. I did process it. I did exercise that out. And when it was finally published this May, it really did bring that relief. And I had the bandwidth to start to think about other things and doing other things.
Is that so? This this is so parallel to my journey in one way. I honestly started this podcast trying to I've just stayed in my little hole here in Texas most of my life. And about 4 years ago, started working on putting stories with a lot of my art because I found I had stories with all of my art, as well as practices, breathing and movement and being and creativity. So I dove off in this similar vein here, working on this book. So to hear it took, did you say 13 years or 17 years?
17. It took 17
Oh,
years. Now
that's,
that was not working on it every day, pounding
yeah.
away for 17 years. It's not War and Peace. But
It's
it took
birthing though. You birth these things.
Yes,
They
and it
take,
took that
yeah,
long,
yeah, yeah.
and I think that I needed to mature, I needed to live more.
Oh,
Um, the bones were there, but I needed more lived experience before I was going to be able to bring it fully to life.
Gotcha. Well, that's so cool for you to be able to sit here and say that looking back, that
Hmm.
you just had it wasn't time. Yeah, which I really don't want to hear. I'm ready to be done. But I know that it's not it is what it is though. I mean, I've been an artist long enough to know it it has to evolve when the time is, yeah. So, but in the process, this podcast started and it has become more for me about sharing these beautiful humans that are doing these interesting things, because then it encourages other people to also, if you're here, there's a reason you're here. So I love hearing. I had no idea that was such a big piece of your story.
Hmm.
So is that when craft ads started? Is that when you finished the novel, or did it start before? And
Before.
okay,
Yeah.
so give us the
So
story. Give us that story.
okay, so I went to AFI and I got my master's in production design, and I kicked around the art departments in film and television in LA for a bit, but I really didn't like the lifestyle. It's very nomadic. The hours are awful. It can be very glamorous, but as a friend of mine once said, only the last part of anything is glamorous. And it tends to be a lot of moving trucks and things, packing things, and there are some beautiful parts to it, but it wasn't a life that I wanted.
I see.
And that was difficult for me because I had invested an enormous amount of time and energy. I'd moved across the country, to live in Pasadena and all that. I didn't regret any of it, but I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I,
wait, hold that thought,
hmm,
David. I want to hear. I didn't know what I was going to do, because when you don't know what you're going to do, there's there's an element of jumping off of a cliff, basically,
yep.
of tiny trust. So how did you determine? How did you determine? And did you have options, or was it a blind leap? So how did you make the next step? Because that's what this is about.
I if I could give a piece of advice, it would be if you don't know what to do, do something.
Love that. Yes.
Something, anything. It
Yes.
doesn't,
That's
and it doesn't
great
have to
advice.
be, it doesn't necessarily have to be going all in on a career kind of thing. Do something new, try something new, open yourself up to a different community, a different set of information, something, because you don't know how that's going to bloom in your life. So here's
Oh,
what I did. I started to volunteer at the local television station here in Pasadena, KPAS. And I would run the cameras and I would just help. It's a public access station. Anybody can show up, but it's a really wonderful organization and they do very high quality work.
mm,
And the head of the station asked me if I had an idea for a television show. Would I be interested in getting a spot on the channel? And I didn't at the time, but the thing that popped into my head was I love going to art museums. I always have. My mom taught art. She was a painter. She was accepted to the Sorbonne, actually, in Paris, but
wow.
wasn't able to go. She lived in France. She ended up having to go to San Jose State, um, and that's a whole other different story. But there's a love of art, and she became an art teacher. And from the time I was little, she would take me to art museums, which I know
Oh,
some children, find boring. And I always loved it. The food is good, it's quiet, you can think, there's beautiful things around, you can reflect. It sparks conversation and everything else. So I have been a museum rat my whole life,
mhm.
and that's what I called the TV show. And I started to look all over the country for art museum shows that I thought were interesting. And I would get on a plane. This was all pre-COVID. I would get on a plane that would take me to a city I never would have gone to otherwise for no other reason than I was going to walk into an art museum.
Mm.
And I went to Santa Fe and I went to
Oh,
Pittsburgh and I went to New York and I went to Paris and I went to Tokyo and I went to all these different places. And whether the trip was specifically for that or where I was there for another reason and I found a great art show, I would go, I would make sure they allowed it, and I would photograph the entire thing. So I have thousands and thousands of photographs of full art shows. Vancouver, the Vancouver Art Gallery, they don't call them museums, they call them galleries, but the Vancouver Art Gallery is an absolutely incredible art museum. They always punch above their weight. I love that place. And I came back and I started to do this show. And again, no money, public access. I
yeah.
was working for a local farm. Just
Oh.
like n didn't know what I was gonna do. I wasn't unhappy, but I didn't know what I was gonna do.
But
And
you were doing
I
though.
was doing, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I went to the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and I walked into a room, and there was a huge painting. It's four metal panels side by side. It's called F-111. It's by the artist James Rosenquist. I didn't know who he was at the time. It is literally the size of an F-111. It's
Wow.
from the early 60s, and it's a hand-painted collage of these sort of kind of modern conveniences that are all sort of jumbled together as a commentary on nuclear war. It's
Mm.
sort of considered a modern Guernica.
Mm.
And so it's a woman in like a beehive hair dryer from the 50s and a bunch of spaghetti and all kinds of stuff, and it's sort of patched together. And it's enormous and beautifully hand painted, real like a realism.
Yeah. And you said collage. So is it metal on metal
No,
or
it's painted on metal. It's paint
okay,
on
it's
metal.
paint on metal. Okay.
Mhm. And I was just blown away. I had never seen anything like it. The scale, the quality of the rendering, the effects work in the paint that Rosenquist was doing. So I stood there just, gobsmacked for minutes on end, and then I went and found the name of the artist and I started to look him up. And it turned out he was a hand-painted billboard artist, commercial artist, and muralist for 40 years in New York before he took off as a fine artist. And he kind of had these parallel tracks.
Uh-huh.
And I looked up, there was a photo of him, and he's sitting on this tiny little wooden seat hung off the side of a building, his arms completely above his head, totally outstretched with a paintbrush in it. And he's painting the sesame seed of a Big Mac.
I love it.
And it's the size of him. I mean, it's this
Uh-huh.
huge hamburger on the side of this building. And I thought, you know what? That's what I want to do with my life.
Oh, wow. It
I
took that.
love,
If you
hmm
hadn't kept moving and not only just moving, but you were moving in a direction that fed your soul. You
yes.
loved, you were going to art museums. So you listened to that voice of what you loved and just kept going. That is such a great story. Wow.
So I started to, it turned out very luckily, or maybe not, maybe it's not luck, maybe it all makes a lot of sense, maybe it's alignment, that the skills and education for production design and set design and mural making are really, really similar.
Ah.
The layouts, the designs, the plans and elevations. I was taught to draft. That's very useful when it comes to mural
Mhm.
making, scaling, all these different things. And I had some background rock climbing and that sort of thing. So being in a harness and being hung off a building was fine with me. It didn't bother
Yeah.
me at all. I liked it. I liked the energy of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
A different kind of action painting, not the Jackson Pollock kind of action painting, but an action painting where there's a real element of physical dynamism to having to be there, you know.
Love that, David. Wow, this is so interesting. Yeah.
Um, so I started to apply to muraling companies, and I did not have a strong enough visual portfolio to beat out the Masters of Fine Arts painting graduates who were applying to the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They could paint, but what they couldn't do was the pre-production.
Right. Actually get out there and hang and do it. Yes.
No, no,
S-
no, not that. They could go do that. What they couldn't
Okay.
do was they couldn't do the studio work where it was getting all the documentation ready,
Gotcha.
processing it all through the computer, getting all of the Pounce layout done, right? All of the pages that go up on the wall before you actually draw it out. And
So
color mix takes
all the work that your production team had being part of that had taught you.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's how I got my foot in the door. And I got in with a really, really good smaller mural company first as an assistant studio production artist. Then I was lead production artist for them. Then I got poached by the largest independent mural company in the nation to be in downtown LA and to help manage their walls downtown, the really, really large stuff.
Whoa.
And I certainly enjoyed both of those and I learned a lot, but as we were talking about, I didn't get to paint very much.
Yeah.
They needed me in the studio. And so I started to build an exit plan. And that the things that I love about mural making, the scale, the
Mhm.
effect, it's
Yeah.
cinematic in its scale, and it has the impact of like copy, you know. It's print plus cinema. So you get
Hmm.
to do these huge visuals. But actually being on site is usually very hot. You're up there all day.
Hmm.
Um, you have to be on the wall the second the sun is up because you're working outside and you have to use natural daylight.
Mm.
As soon as the wall is taking direct sunlight, you have to stop because it blows out your rods and cones and you can't get the colors right.
Mm.
So you stop, you know, middle of the day, and you have to stop for 2 or 3 hours because the sunlight is directly on the wall.
Mm. Hmm.
So I don't know how many muralists you know, but if you send a muralist off for lunch for 3 hours, they can come back having had a few beers.
Oh,
So
my.
the work tends to dip pretty significantly in the afternoon. Um, and then it starts to stretch on, it's not an efficient uh,
Gotcha.
workflow.
Yeah.
And on top of that, if it rains, you are out of luck.
Yeah.
You can't work because the paint literally won't adhere to the wall.
Yeah.
So if you catch a long rainstorm, the entire industry can back up because you literally can't finish the contract. And so the contract starts late, which means the next contract starts late, which means the next contract, and it just starts to push back.
Yeah.
So I started to look for a combination of a studio workflow with a controlled environment and doing muraling. And that led me to hand painted billboards.
Great. Okay. Well, let's dive into this. I want to hear all about it. So you do most of the painting.
Yes, my art director and
Oh,
I do all of the painting.
all of the painting. That's
Sometimes
your.
that's not fair because sometimes we know a lot of great painters, and sometimes if we're really busy, we'll contract in and we'll bring
Gotcha.
people in for a couple of days just to make sure
Mm-hmm.
we get everything done. But for the most part, yes, it's just the two of us.
Wow. Well, so tell us, what exactly why are you doing this?
Mm.
Why? I love your story, how you got here, because that explains a lot. But so why does this work after this very, very interesting path here? Yeah.
Well, as I thought, you know what? I think the studio workflow of hand painted billboards is probably a really good fit for me. I started to look for a hand painted billboard company in the United States, and there wasn't one. Nowhere, zero,
Wow.
not one left.
Mm.
And I thought, well, that's probably my niche. I'm going to go ahead and start it. So that's when I hung the shingle for craft ads. I wouldn't have, I was looking to work for somebody else. And when I found the job that nobody else was doing, I filled it. And it's been 18 months, and
Oh.
we booked our first billboard. I'll have to also tell you about my agent and how I got my agent for the advertising industry, because that was another, you just start, you just keep doing.
Yeah.
Um, but I booked our first billboard on spec, advertising ourselves with no clients. We didn't even have a website, I don't think.
Mm.
And we painted the first one. It went up in Altadena at the top of the hill. I've been hunting. I try to really find really picturesque locations. Some clients and some billboard companies, they'll do a mix of just what they call a portfolio. So
Mm-hmm.
it'll be A, B, and C grade boards, and that's based on the amount of foot traffic, or the amount of traffic that crosses the board in a day, location, is it in a beautiful location, whatever. And then they'll just kind of sell a portfolio of A, B's, and C's, a kind of a mix.
Mm-hmm.
I go out on safari, I put on my walking shoes, and I go into a neighborhood and I hunt, and I go find
Love
what's
that.
picturesque, what works, what gives a good, scene. Um, why would this billboard not be good, because setting really matters, it's like a frame.
Mm-hmm. It's
Um,
part of the beauty of what is being seen. So,
that's right.
yeah.
So I found this really beautiful board that I thought was undervalued and being underutilized, and punched above its weight for the cost. It was high up on a hill, looking all the way down from Altadena onto Pasadena,
Mm.
and booked it on spec, winging a prayer, and it went up. And within 10 days, NPR called me, and they said, "We'd like to do a story about your hand painted billboard company." And so we did a story with NPR. Um, and then NBC News saw that, and they contacted us and said, "We'd like to do a story about your hand painted billboard company." So
Wow. I love it.
that really got us going. That got us our first client. That was a really big deal, and I'm very grateful to both of those outlets for deciding to talk to us and to give us that platform, because it brought us our first clients. More than anything, the press was the thing that really launched the business. I
So
mean,
your first billboard, you were advertising what you do. You
I
were
was
putting,
advertising craft ads.
okay,
That's right.
craft ads. And now people hire you to hand paint their billboards, which is
Yes,
so beautiful, so nostalgic, and it's just so much more real than something flashing when you drive by. I love
that's
it.
right.
It's
And
so,
all of the ads in the US used to be hand painted.
mm,
It all used to be hand painted art. And
yeah,
now it's all of this, it's photoshopped and digital. It has
right.
no personality, and it has no connection to an artist who cared or who created. Even small imperfections, right,
Absolutely.
are
Absolutely.
part
That's
of
part
what
of the
brings a
beauty.
person exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Oh,
And yeah, so in a world where all of that is sort of just airbrushed, and perfect and digital, all of our ads are hand painted, and that connects. Maybe that's not right for every single brand,
yeah.
but there are enough brands that want that kind of feel, want that kind of, I try not to use the word nostalgia, but connection, to real,
Mhm.
or
Oh,
connection to
love that.
heritage, right? To the heritage of American advertising, that we fill our slate.
Connection to real.
Mm,
That is such a big piece of what is needed because there's so much not real right now. So
yes.
I love it that you're doing it on such a beautiful, in beautiful places and the scale, drawing that actually almost people can't miss it. It almost
Right.
forces them to see. And that's the beginning. That opens a doorway to real just by noticing. And what you put into it, the heart and soul and uh, the artistry is just it's just such a gift. Just such an interesting fellow you are. Oh my goodness. So where can we see where can we find these? If we live in Texas, how can we find your work and tell us because I want to see it. I want to see and also can we still watch your public TV show, the museums?
I've thought about no.
Okay.
I have the whole catalog of shows, and I've thought about bringing it back and actually turning it into the Craft Ads blog because I have,
What a gift that would be, David. I
50,
mean, think of school children. I mean, I think
oh,
schools would go crazy over. I was also a high school art teacher,
oh,
and my students, despite what people think, they loved art history, loved it because it's rich. It's
mm-hmm,
interesting. It's full of
mm-hmm,
interesting people, and it's mind-opening. And high school kids are very in tune to what's real. So, man,
mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that'd be amazing. I'd love to see them. So, yeah, but
I'll
that,
keep you posted. I'll let you know.
okay, yeah.
You
Well,
can go to craftads.com.
okay,
That's our website.
all righty,
You can find us on Instagram at @CraftAdsOfficial.
okay,
And you mentioned, where in Texas. Actually, our representation is with Wilkins Media.
okay,
And Wilkins is the largest, oldest, it's called out-of-home advertiser, which is everything, billboards, sides of buses, benches, anything that's outside, is considered out of home in the advertising industry. And Wilkins is the largest, most established out-of-home advertising agency in the United States, and they work globally.
okay.
And I cold called them for a year
Hmm. There's a trust.
with
Wow.
with this idea. I said, I'm thinking of doing this. I'm thinking of doing a hand painted billboard company. What do you think about that? Could they have stolen the idea? Of course, but what am I what good does it do me to not talk to experts? You
Yeah, and
know?
it wouldn't have had the heart and soul that you have in it.
That's
They
right.
could have they could have done it. It would have been fine probably, but it's not the same product that
It's
you're
not the same product.
delivering.
And they didn't do any of that. They're really ethical and they're wonderful.
Great.
And the first call that I had with them, they said, "That's interesting. Keep us posted." All right, that's not a no.
Yeah.
So it took me another year, and about every 3 months, I'd call them and I'd say, "I'm still working on this. I'm still figuring out the workflows. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to do it. Are you interested?" And they're like, "We're interested. Just keep us posted." And the beginning of 2024, a couple days after New Year's, I called and they said, "You know what? Actually, we're looking for some new media partners. And if you would be interested in being an official Wilkins media partner, we might have a slot for you." And that gave us the ability to work with every billboard advertiser in the world, in the country,
My
and in Los
goodness.
Angeles, where we are. We can book with anybody. We have incredible representation. All of our workflows are professionally handled by Wilkins, and we focus on the art and production.
Wow.
And
Just what
so,
your life led you to that place. It really did.
yes. Oh,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
um, Deborah, my agent, she really works hard. She really cares about our clients. She cares about us. She cares about our business. I'm very, very grateful to the entire Wilkins team. So whether you're in Texas or New York or anywhere else, if you would like to work with us, we can book anything, anywhere,
Wow.
through our representation, which is international through Wilkins.
Well, and it seems the more that these are seen, the more they're going to be wanted. So,
It seems to be going that way. Thank you.
wow, that's really I hear all the bravery and the trust and the work and the years of not knowing. And that's such a piece of this, not knowing. You still have to take those little steps. You have to keep, so that first advice you gave us was just right. Just do something. Just keep moving. Don't,
Something.
in other words, don't just think about it. Don't just sit and think. At least that's been my experience. Don't just think about it. Just go do something, move. Yeah. I could,
And you know what else? If I, an adage that I have held on to, be a heat seeker. If you do something and somebody notices, clock that. Pay attention to when people pay attention to what you're doing. It may not come in the places that you think. You know, when I was at that public access station and I was just in a good mood and happy to be there, do you have
mm,
an idea for a show? You know, pay attention.
true.
Pay
That's true.
attention to where you're getting
Yeah.
heat. It may
That's,
not, it may not look huge at first, and it may not even lead to anything directly.
yeah.
But pay attention to when people perk up or focus when you're doing something.
Yeah. And in the process, you're actually living.
That's right. The
You're
most important
living. And
part, right?
that's really, that's what this does. It keeps us alive. I feel these tiny, not always tiny, but trusts, choices. And I have loved chatting with you, David.
Thank you.
I hope we can do this again because this was really fun. But I love to close with, and can't wait to hear your answer. Um, a seemingly insignificant. It didn't seem to be a big choice, just something that you made a decision and took a step of tiny trust that impacted your life greatly.
I I know exactly what it is. My education, my art education was very digitally heavy.
Mm,
And everything was about speed, which is great, and producing things quickly, using every aid and tool and anything else to get it done fast, right?
mm,
That's production. I decided that I really wanted a fundamentals arts education. And I wanted to go back to drawing, tone, oil paint.
mm.
And the second I looked it up for the first time, that when the student is ready, the teacher will come, that kind of thing.
Yes.
When I made that choice, I don't want to feel locked inside of tools and aids. I want to be able to get my hands to do what is in my imagination, you
Mm,
know? I looked it up and I found that there was a school 10 minutes from my door
mm.
that taught exactly a sort of a bootstrap Renaissance education, right? Line to tone
Oh,
to oil fundamentals to color theory into effects work, portraiture and all of that. Inexpensive. It's a community, school, and I started to do that, and then I found um, a a world-class illustration school in Encinitas. People come from all over the world to attend, and it's an hour and a half from my door.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, I realized that I am sitting in a hotbed of arts education that I can soak up for years. And so I now split my time. I've been taking that seriously for the last 2 years.
Mm.
And I now split my time between craft ads and my oil painting practice. And I love my days. I love my life. I'm very, very grateful to have found all of these things and for all the other people who have created resources and, educational institutions and things that allow me to progress. Because I feel like I have a lifelong journey that I can simply show up to, pay attention to,
Yeah.
enjoy, and thrive.
Wow. Well, I'm so glad you've stayed on the journey that you started several years ago.
So
Uh,
long ago, yeah.
yes, yes, but congratulations. I mean, I'm just so, keep me posted about billboards in Texas. I want to see one in person.
I
Yeah.
will. And if you know anybody who
Yeah.
needs one, you have them contact me,
I
okay?
definitely will. Yeah. Painting large is a big piece of my art also, because I think it draws attention to the things that people are missing, and there's just so much. Well, I think in my opinion, it's all about love being offered everywhere when we begin to look, but you have to look. You have to
Definitely.
look, yeah, or notice. So, oh, thank you so much. I'm so grateful, and I hope we can stay in touch and chat again. This was fascinating.
It's
So,
been my pleasure. I've really enjoyed it too. Yes, I'd love to.
thanks so much for joining us on Even Just a Little.